In this short recording, I'm just going to take you through what the exam paper will look like, how the questions are formatted within that exam paper, and how you might just approach understanding the question and what they're looking for. I will be following up this recording with an analysis of the mark scheme, so that you can compare your understanding of the exam paper with what the examiner is looking for within your response. So the exam board that you're studying with is Edexcel GCSE English Literature, and it's the Unit 2, Understanding Poetry. This paper that I'm looking at is the higher tier. I will do another one for the foundation tier, although the majority of students in our class will be studying the higher tier, as you know. The exam paper will look exactly as it does right here. What you'll notice is that on the front of the exam paper they have 1 hour 45 minutes clearly indicated, and that's to cover your two sections of the exam that will be undertaken during this time period. The first section will be looking at an unseen poem. You will not know what that poem is in advance, so you need to use your analysis skills that you've used throughout the poetry study that we've done, as well as when you've been looking at poems independently, online or in poetry books that you've picked up. Those analysis skills need to be put into place. So remember to just structure your answer in the same way that we have done in class. You can use, if it suits your style, the Art Wars structure. So that takes you through the different elements that you should look at and analyse during your analysis essay of the poem. Now this particular section does not need to be an extended essay, but it does need to be a clear and a detailed analysis of whatever you choose to analyse. The second question, as you'll see shortly, is based on the anthology poetry that you have studied in class. During our class study, you've been annotating and making notes in your anthology, your personal anthology, and revising from that. And that's very useful, but you will not have that obviously in the exam. There will be a blank but identical anthology on your table when you enter. So the analysis you have done in your anthologies needs to be studied, revised and looked at, so that you can apply that when you see the poem that they actually allocate to you during that exam, because you will not have your notes in there. So as you see, this is the first section that we're shown as we open the exam paper. Section A, it's the unseen poem. This is an example of a question that they used last year during the summer exam period. There are others available on the Edexcel website for free for anybody to look at, whether that be parents or students or teachers. So feel free to dip in there and see what they've already set. But again, you will not know, so read poetry little and often. Familiarise yourself with poems that you don't know and how you can approach that and understand it. So this poem, as you can see, is called From the Motorway. There's the poet's name at the bottom, Anne Stevenson. It'll be laid out exactly the same. They usually will just use one single page. It's unlikely, although possible, but it's unlikely they will give you a longer poem than the one you see before you. Again, because it's an unseen poem, they will give you a poem whereby you do not need to talk about the social and historical context, because you will not know that in advance, whereas you may bring in some of the poet's life or the social and historical context of the poem in the second half. In this half, it is just your analysis of language, looking at you picking out those devices, your understanding of that particular poem they're presenting you, and the poet's ideas behind the poem that you've read through during the exam time. On the next page, you'll see the question that relates to that particular poem. So in this particular instance, the question is explore how Anne Stevenson presents her ideas about the motorway, and then the line underneath, use evidence from the poem to support your answer. Okay, they've highlighted the word evidence there. You need to make sure you pick out quotes, although when you do pick the quotes out, they need to be quotes that you can clearly analyse and pull a lot of language understanding from that. So it may be picking poetic devices, although that's not the main thing they're looking for, not for you to name devices that you know. The main thing they're looking for is for you to understand and analyse the quote that you have in terms of the reader's understanding. And my reminder to you here is not to make the response personal and to think about the reader rather than your personal thoughts. So that would involve excluding phrases such as I feel, or this makes me consider this idea. It would be about the reader. It would be about anybody that would come to that poem rather than just your personal viewpoint. Once you've completed your analysis of the unseen poem, and again that will be a shorter response than an in-depth poetry essay you may do in class with a poem that you're familiar with, you'll move on to section B. Now this section encompasses the anthology poems you've been studying. Now with this section there are a number of options that you can choose. There are 4 collections within our anthology. Now collection A, B, C and D are the names that are given in this exam paper. You need to carefully select the one that we have been studying. You would be surprised how many students under the pressure select a different collection and try to answer the question on that particular poem that they haven't actually studied. So be mindful and look for the correct question. So the first page you'll turn over to after your unseen poetry question will be this one, which is collection A, relationships. You have not done this, please don't complete this question. The next you will see is the clashes and collisions, collection B. Now this is our collection, clashes and collisions. Now you'll have your blank anthology, so at this point in the exam you will open your anthology, look in the contents page, find the page number at which our section begins and turn to clashes and collisions within that anthology, so section B. Now there are the questions here presented to you. I will run through these questions just briefly, and again look for the mark scheme video within the YouTube channel to make sure that you understand what they're looking for. So we have a selection of poems, they will present you with one. So looking at question 3A, which is the question you will answer, and write that very clearly in the margin of your exam paper. Explore how the writer presents her ideas about tensions and conflict between a mother and a daughter in Katrin. Use evidence from the poem to support your answer. So that's the first question that you will look at. They give you that poem, you must look at that poem. So if there is a poem within the collection you're unsure of or you're not happy, you wouldn't want that one to come up in the exam, study that one carefully, because if it comes up you need to write about it. Okay, so again, you would choose that particular poem, only write about this particular poem when you're answering question 3A. You're looking at how the writer presents their ideas within the poem about tensions and conflict between the mother and the daughter there. So make sure that you look at clearly as you go in the question, underline the key things they're asking you to do. So ideas, you're looking at ideas, how the writer presents them, tensions and conflict, and then the 2 characters, mother and daughter, within that. Now, again, you can use the art wars as you've prepared within your lesson time. You have your grid. You should clearly be able to pull out as much as you possibly can on the theme, on the language, and anything else that they're looking for. Again, look at the mark scheme video in order for you to see exactly the content of your answer to that particular question. This one is worth 15 marks. Once you've finished that, you'll complete one or the other of the next question. So A and B, you will only complete 2 sections on this particular page. So you'll have completed A, you'll have answered as much as you can on how the writer presents her ideas about tensions and conflict in that poem, Katrin. And you'll have backed it up with quotes, so they're looking for the evidence there, and analyse those quotes as much as you can. Then you'll move on to section B of this question. So you'll choose either the first or the second question they present you with. So read them carefully, underline what they're asking you to do, annotate if you feel that will help you. So annotate what they're asking you to do, the poem that they've presented to you, and how you might approach that. So let's have a look at the first one. B, the first question within B. Compare how the writers of Cousin Kate and Katrin present the ideas of tension between people. Use evidence from the poems to support your answer. You may include material you have used in answer 3A. So that one will allow you to present the ideas from the first question in your second question, but you must link it with Cousin Kate, so they're naming that one. So that's one option. You go with the 2 named poems that they give, and you do a comparison essay where you put in some ideas you've just talked about in this question down into your next essay, but use that to compare with Cousin Kate. So in that one you'd be talking slightly more about Cousin Kate than you have about Katrin, because you've already covered most of that in your first one. The second option, and again it's either or, it's not both. Do not answer the 3 sections, either answer the first 2 or the first one and the second one. So the second option for section B is the following question. Compare how the writers of Catrin and one poem of your choice from Clashes and Collisions collection to present the theme of conflict in any setting. Use evidence from the poems to support your answer. You may include material you've used from answer 3A. So again, in this option, you can still include the questions and the answer rather that you've been analysing and the ideas you've put forward in the first section down into the second. But this particular one allows you to choose your own poem. So you do not have to do the one that they have told you to do. Okay, so very similar questions, not much difference between the two. You'll focus more on the one that you are choosing, okay, so the one that you've chosen, or Cousin Kate if you're doing the first option, and bring in the ideas you've already talked about within Catrin in the first answer that you've completed. Okay. This second question will be marked out of 15 again, depending on which one you choose. It's the same mark, it doesn't make any difference. So the total will be 30 marks for this second section. Now please, just to reiterate, only choose the questions within the Clashes and Collisions. So at the end of your poetry essay, your poetry exam, you will have written an answer to an unseen poem. You will have written an answer to a poem they have named in question 3A. And then you will have either gone for question 3B where they name another one and compared it to Catrin, or you will choose one of your choice and have compared it to Catrin. So the only questions you should have answered should have been the first one, question 1, and then question 3A, and an option within question 3B. So you will have 3 mini essays by the time you finish your poetry exam. All the best for your revision in your exam. Miss Finlater, thank you very much.